So I'm a little bit of a mess this evening. It's been kind of a wild weekend, and if you listened to my episode from last night, number one, thank you. Number two, I'm here to talk to you about something different. So it's kind of fitting that I'm a little bit of a mess because my episode tonight is all about the spiritual appearing in the seemingly mundane, the spiritual appearing in everyday life, in all that we're doing, in all that we are just on a daily basis, of spirits being just right here, not something we have to go to an altar to experience, not something we have to fall on our knees and worship, not something that we need to, I'm going to go so far as to say, disrespect by poking and prodding. But the spirits are right here. And I'm going to go into some more details about the experiences that I've had with spirits, with the purpose of inviting you to take on a different perspective and interact with spirit in a way that is most appropriate for you, as long as it's respectful, and hopefully spark some things in you. And I'm motivated to share this today because I find myself feeling really frustrated with how the spiritual is treated in the United States. People who kind of like ghost hunt, who go to these places where true horrors have happened, like, places where people were kept. I don't even want to relive it that much because it doesn't bear, but like places like buildings, where horrible things happened, right? Like human experimentation, people who were deemed unfit for society because of their minds or whatever it is, and who were just treated horribly. And now, no surprise, there's a lot of bad energy in those places, and so there's spirits there. I have an issue with people thinking that the only interaction we can have with spirit is a disrespectful one, where we go to places where horrors happened and poke at things. I don't like that. It's not for me. And I think it does a disservice to spirits because there's so much more to spirits and to collaboration with them than simply poking and prodding at haunted, horrific places. So, ever since I started kind of opening to my psychic gifts, I don't know, 4 years ago, 4 years ago-ish, I kind of like just, I mean, I don't want to say I opened a portal because I know there's a lot of associations with what that means, and that can come across like I have some sort of vortex or something here. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of like I thinned the veil a little bit between the earth and the spiritual plane. And I have been fortunate enough to have visual representations of spirits in my home. And I'm here to talk more about what that is. But before I even do that, I have to tell you that just like a human to human relationship, nobody ever communicates in exactly the same way all the time, right? Like sometimes we text, sometimes we call, sometimes we talk face to face with other humans, and we get together in different areas. Spirits are kind of like this in that they do communicate in different ways. And most commonly and most profoundly, the way that they interact most, powerfully is when I'm just listening, when I'm quietly listening and connecting with my own spirit. So, probably the most powerful way that I've connected with, who I will call, if I think, who I will call like my guides, if you want to think of it like guardian angels, I've connected most strongly with them. It sounds creepy, but it's not. In the shower, because number one, with a life like mine where there's not a whole lot of privacy in my house, it's one of the few places where I can be alone. And there are some scientific things to when water is flowing, it kind of it helps get us into more of a meditative state where we can open to spiritual communication. Because I'm going to go ahead and argue that creativity and spirituality are very closely connected, meaning, we open similar parts of our brain. kind of related to the flow state or related to connecting. And spirits are very, very creative. So, the best way that I've actually interacted with spirits and do on a regular basis is honestly when I'm showering and I'm kind of just opening my mind to listen, and when the highest parts of me are open to listening. And usually that's when it's most collaborative. And it's simple, it's as simple as kind of saying in my head or out loud, "Thank you for being with me. Help me connect," you know, or "What do you need to say to me today?" And it doesn't always have to be ceremonial. Not all of us have a life where we can be ceremonial. And that's part of what I think the spirits want me to tell you today is that they are with us in the everyday and all that we're doing. Because when I've had visual representations of these spirits, it's been during very mundane moments. And so let me just say, like, kind of like I was saying before, that the best experience, the best collaboration I've had is not necessarily a visual thing that I see, although it's cool. It's more how I communicate in my mind or with my spirit, spirit to spirit, sort of that like subconscious communication, right? Because I believe spirits can hear our thoughts. Just like we hear our own thoughts, spirits can hear our thoughts. That's a lot of times how psychic mediums work, right? If you've ever seen a psychic, they'll kind of pause. Okay, I'm hearing, you know what I mean? Like you don't necessarily hear that audible voice, but it's sort of like that spirit to spirit connection happening. I did not plug in my computer prior to this conversation, so forgive me as I do so. All right. So, a great way to connect with spirits is just to open yourself to it. Laura Lynn Jackson wrote a couple great books on connecting specifically with your guides. She gives very practical, very approachable tips to connecting with spirit guides. So, I highly recommend Laura Lynn Jackson's work. I also recommend William Bloom's work. He does a lot with explaining spirits who are in places of nature or even like clinics, like current clinics. He's done remarkable work on connecting with just the spirits among us, how to reach out, how to connect, how to work with them. So, really good resources for just daily spiritual connections are Laura Lynn Jackson's work and William Bloom's work. I'll link them. I'll help you out. I'll give you the links. So when it comes to the visual, though, y'all have, heard about my shadow experience. That's probably the most stunning visual I've ever had of a spirit just appearing in a photo. And I have it I have that photo right there, in the episodes that are about the shadow. And so you can see what it looks like right there. I mean, it's covering half of my face. Although, if you're on video right now, I actually have the photo. One of my kids scratched it, so it's a little weird, but you can kind of see it here. But since I'm recording in the evening, my lighting isn't great. But again, I have the picture as like the episode icon for what it was about, so you can check there. But there's one that has appeared in my house. I call it the Wisp. And it's appeared about 4 or 5 times beginning in November of 2025 up until the last time I saw it was probably a month or two ago. And I don't do anything to call this spirit. It just kind of appears when it wants to. And it looks like, okay, if you've ever burned sage or if you've ever seen sage being burned, it looks like that. It's kind of smoke like, and it literally looks like burning sage, but on a much bigger scale. And it has appeared near both of my couches, like in the exact spot where I typically do my writing upstairs. That's the first place I ever saw it. And that's actually what the picture of this episode is showing you. It doesn't like to be caught on camera. So I tried taking a picture of it just once and then I never tried again because I'm like, you know what? This does not want to be caught on camera, so I'm not going to try again. But I'll, as this episode icon, I put a picture of my son trying to play with it. So you can kind of see near the couch where it was. You can see just the tiniest bit of smoke like stuff, but it was thick. It was like steaming kind of a thing when it first appeared. And my husband couldn't see it at that point, but my son could. And he was like playing with it. It's appeared a couple times since in front of all my kids. Like once it appeared between my daughter and stepdaughter on the couch. They were actually arguing and it appeared between them. And some of the kids claimed that they could see it. Some of them said, oh, it's just from the sun, but it wasn't from the sun. It was funny. Like all the kids kind of had different reactions of like, what is this? And it's appeared just, a couple more times throughout the house, but it's always just when we're going about our daily business. And the picture of it with my son, I was just walking around, like we were just at home hanging out. I was walking around cleaning, and then I came into the living room and there it was. And it's very calm, very wispy, and it kind of just hangs out for a while. And probably the strongest it ever appeared was the one that happened about a month or two ago. And it appeared in my stepdaughter's room. And she saw it before. Well, one of my stepdaughters share a room, but one of them saw it first. She was cleaning. She was actually cleaning her room. And I was across the hall in my room, and she said to me, Jenna, why is there smoke in our room? What is this? And in my mind, I was like, what the hell? There shouldn't be smoke. But as soon as I looked, it was the spirit. It was the wisp. And sure enough, her whole room was full of this spirit. And everybody saw it this time. There was no denying, because it was thick enough that my stepdaughter thought there was smoke in her room. That is how thick this spirit was. And a couple of the other kids came to see, and what's interesting is everybody saw different shapes, almost as if it was like a cloud or something. One person said it looked like a sea turtle, another person said it was kind of in the shape of a manta ray. Some just saw a swirl, and it usually lingers on average about 3 minutes, and then it kind of like evaporates. It's like it slowly fades. And I haven't attempted to take a picture of it, ever since that first time, because again, I get the sense that it doesn't want me to, which is why it's really hard to capture it on camera. But here's what I know about what that spirit is and wants. Whenever I've reached out and asked, who are you? What's going on kind of a thing. I've only ever gotten two answers. I don't have a specific identity for this spirit. I don't know, you know, what kind of spirit it is, or if it's, an ancestor. I don't think it's an ancestor. I think it's a unique spirit. But the only answers I've ever gotten when I've reached out and asked are, number one, sacred in the mundane. I hear that over and over again. It's meant to be a message that the spirits are with us. We don't have to go on this quest, and we don't have to act perfectly for them to show up, because it literally showed up during an argument. Like my kids were, and it was a dumb argument. It was my kids just squabbling the way that siblings do. And it just appeared as they're like squabbling, and it appeared when I was cleaning. It appeared when I was sitting on the couch. It always appears just when random things are happening. And it's to send the message that we are good enough as we are. We can interact with and talk to spirits as we're just going about our business. We can reach out to spirit when we're arguing, when we're being petty. They're with us. We don't have to bow and submit and all, like some religions teach. It's like they're right there with us. So sacred in the mundane is one thing that I heard, and protection is the other thing that I heard, that it is a protective spirit. It's watching over my family. And if you know anything about us, we're in need of protection, and we have been very well protected. So it's here kind of watching over us. But what's interesting is, although this is one of the most striking visual experiences I've ever had, probably besides the shadow, it's not necessarily like, you know, the deepest. Like I said, some of the strongest things that I experience are just kind of talking with the spirits every day, working collaboratively with them about the things that we want to create and the healing that the world needs. And so the thing that I want to make sure to point out about this is that it's not just about the shock of, oh my God, look at that. It's about the why, right? And it's not about it being scary. And this is again my problem with these ghost hunters is it's like, well, you're who is this spirit to you really? Because that's part of the thing is it's like we are meant to work with particular spirits and to connect with particular spirits. Why are you seeking out often, in evil places where these spirits are? Like, who are they to you? Why are you even trying to interact with them? And so it's something where it's like, again, our work with spirit is meant to be collaborative. And I just have to question how collaborative is a relationship when someone is going out of their way, out of their home, into something else's home and something else's energy to get a reaction. I don't think that's particularly respectful. And so the thing about the spirits in my home is they've chosen to be here. They're here for a reason to work with us. And so that's a big part of this. And it's not, and this wisp has appeared during the day. That's the best part. It's not like at night under the creepy veil of the sky. It's like, no, this spirit has only ever appeared during the day. That's it, you know? So that's kind of cool too, is that I didn't have to stay up at 3 a.m. and summon something. No, it's come in the broad daylight. And it's here to protect and it's here to remind me that the spiritual can be found just in the mundane, that we're meant to work with these spirits in our daily life. And so, on that note, I'm going to talk about the shadow again, real quick. The shadow, when I took that picture of me with the shadow, I wasn't going to, it happened in Sedona, one of the vortices in Sedona. And sure, I was there to meditate and connect with the spirits and the energy there. But all I did was I sat down and I listened, you know, and I was talking with this spirit long before I took a picture. And it was gracious enough to reveal itself and to reveal something about me. And here's the thing where the why comes in. If a spirit has appeared to you, if you've been so blessed as to get a picture of it, well, it's trying to tell you something. And it's not necessarily, like again, there's more than just ghosts, like it's not there are spirits that take care of things in nature. You have a spirit. So it's like it's trying to work with you. It's trying to teach you something about yourself. And often that's a journey. So I can't stress enough how important it is to ask the spirit why, you know, what's going on? Because all the relationships that I've had with spirits have been collaborative. We've been working together. It's awakened some things in me that have been good. There was some growth that needed to happen in me that happened because I collaborated with the spirit. This shadow picture isn't just about the shock of it. It's about, okay, I mean, it's taken me a year and I still don't fully understand it. It's meant to send you on a journey, not for you to have a jump scare and brag about it. It's meant to be a collaboration. And again, this is where William Bloom's work is incredibly helpful because it teaches you to work with spirits in a collaborative way. Now, always trust your gut, okay? Because it is true that there are negative entities out there. There are spirits that are trying to do harm. Of course, there are. Just like we have humans that try to do harm and humans that try to help. There's all kinds of free will, even in the spirit world. So if something feels off to you, or if something is telling you to harm anyone, you shouldn't be listening to that. Okay. So, like, if something feels off, definitely listen to that. But if something is telling you to harm someone, yeah, we don't listen to that. That's evil. That's like the kind of shit that like serial killers listen to. Okay. So let's not. Trust your gut. If something just feels off or something feels evil, it probably is. This most often, like, and for me, what that looks like for me as the psychic medium, it's just a like it's like I don't even want to look at that. I don't even want to go near it. And I'm just going to stay over here. So, like, I get a sense sometimes when I go by certain trees or buildings, it's just this instant, nope, I'm going to look the other way, almost like you're running into an X or something. That's how it appears for me. Also, in dreams, sometimes if there's something, that maybe has some sinister intentions appearing in a dream, I always know it's like, you're not who you say you are, and it's kind of your gut, your spirit, telling you. So it's important to listen to yourself if something feels off. And benevolent spirits, good spirits don't tell you to cause harm. If you're listening to this show, you've been listening long enough that you know that I'm angry about a lot of stuff. Okay, there's a lot of justice that I need to happen, want to help make happen, but I've never and the spirits are very much a part of that. I work with spirits to, they're very much part of my work. I've never wanted to go out and harm someone, So even though I'm angry, there's matters of justice. I've never, gone to do harm. So that's important to know, is that if you're working with good spirits, benevolent spirits, they're not going to tell you to go harm anybody. It doesn't work like that. So always be aware of that. I guess if there's anything I want you to take away from today, it's that we need to change our relationship with spirits. We need to stop glorifying ghost hunting TV shows, because I've seen enough of that world to know that, okay, these people are like provoking, they're going to these places with where horrors happened. And we don't have enough people who are writing about and speaking about the good work that spirits are doing, and where there are spirits that are giving life and spirits that are trying to work with us to heal the world. And that's partly why I'm telling you about these experiences today, is because it's like, okay, I need to just share some more details about how spirits have appeared in my life. And it's not about jump scares, it's about working with them. And yeah, I've seen some cool things, but there's a respectful way to do that. And sometimes they're just there to say hi. I think that's the case with the wisp too. Like, it also is just like, hey, I'm here. And so these are just a couple of the stories. I have more, but I'll probably save them for another episode. I'm feeling more so like I need to start just sharing more of these in detail with you. And so I will. So there's more spiritual experiences that I've had, things I've encountered that I'll share. But if you're interested in this work, I highly encourage you to study William Bloom's books along with Laura Lynn Jackson. That's a good, very practical way to start, is to look into some of their work. And you can also start right now by you can reach out to your guides, similar to how like Christians pray. It's very similar to that, only you're not talking to some patriarchal God. You're speaking to your guides, you're speaking to your higher self. So it's as simple as you can speak, in your mind through your spirit. You can write things down. You can say it out loud if you have that space. It's starting a conversation, and it's also listening to your gut and your heart to make sure that who you're working with has good intentions, because you can sense it if something's off, or it's like, no, this is not good. And like I said, the spirits that are here to help will never tell you to do harm to anybody. That's not how they function. So anyway, there was one other thing. Oh, yeah. Okay. So my stories that I write, very spiritually charged. I can't recommend enough that you read my stories, because that's where most of my psychic medium gifts show up, is in the things that I've written. Because when I wrote everything that I wrote, I was communing with something. I was learning things out in nature. I was looking at stories that had been written and trying to kind of resurrect the spiritual, resurrect the strength out of that. And so go to my website, lovingcreatively.com. There's lots of things that you can read for free on there. My stories, Monsters and She Death's Reflection, those are like channeled stories, to tell you the truth. It was me dealing with the domestic abuse that I experienced on my own prior to the current situation my family is dealing with. And then She Death's Reflection is all about what my family is dealing with. So it's a unique perspective on domestic violence that you won't find anywhere else, because it was me sort of channeling spiritual strength to deal with real world domestic violence. It's working with magic, working with spirits, working with the collective to find healing for this disease of domestic violence. So I can't recommend enough that you read Monsters and She Death's Reflection, because number one, they're novellas. You can read them in a night, and they're kind of meant to be that way. They're kind of meant to be like a rabbit hole that you jump down. And again, they're very spiritually charged stories. I worked with spirits to write those stories while I was actually undergoing EMDR therapy. So it's kind of cool. Like, I'm sure a psychologist would like to study it someday, but it's a cool perspective that you won't get elsewhere. But you could also read my stories, Daenerys, Widow's Soul, The Hacker, and Hermione. Oh my God, read Hermione. It's a very spiritual perspective on Harry Potter. Very spiritual. And so I recommend that you read those, because a lot of my perspective and relationship with spirits is in those characters, and you can read it for free. So, well, Monsters and She Death's Reflection you have to buy, but they're fairly cheap. But the other stories you can just go click on my website. So you should do that. Thanks for staying with me on this journey. Like I said, I'm a little bit of a mess right now. I'm a little flustered. In addition to having some like pretty serious stuff going on, it's just been kind of a busy weekend, but I had to share this with you before I attempt to go to bed. I'm pretty wired, so I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But if you've made it this far in the episode, thank you. And I can't thank my regular listeners enough. Ashburn, Minneapolis, you're fantastic. I've noticed I have some new listeners in Europe, so thank you. Thank you so much for checking me out, for always coming back. Please know how grateful that I am for you. And of course, if there's somebody who you think could benefit from this, please do share it with them. I would love to help as many people as I possibly can, and I've got more spiritual stories coming for you. Not like the spirits are coming for you, but you understand what I mean. I got to find a way to make it awkward at the end. But anyway, thanks for coming.